This week on Better Bad Ideas, we have a special guest. You all know him. It's Dana White. On this episode, we get into the UFC, we get into the new venture of Power Slap, the future of boxing, we touch upon politics. Let's get it on.
I'm Sean O'Brien, General President of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Put your helmets on, buckle your chin straps. It's a full contact sport.
We're going to find out who has a better bad idea. We're here with Dana White, the president of the UFC. Huge fan. The best part about you is you got Boston roots, which we love. But what is it like being the most notable and popular and successful sports mogul in the world?
Well, thank you. What's the question? I mean, everything is...
Definitely from Boston.
What's that?
He had to ask the question over just like I would have.
I've been very fortunate. I get to do what I love to do. And, as I get older, I just keep piling on more shit. I keep doing more and more instead of, doing less and less and looking at slowing down. I don't want to slow down. I want to keep, I'm getting into boxing now. Why? I started to look at timing as everything, and now seems like the right time to do it. And I'm doing it with Turkey. It makes sense to me right now.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, look, there's nothing better than guys like us when we should be winding it down and starting to enjoy, some fruits of our labor. It seems like a better bad idea just to keep putting more shit on our plate, right?
I enjoy. I don't. The old school, when we were growing up, it was like, oh, I want to be on a beach drinking a margarita and all that. How many fucking margaritas can you drink on the beach before you go, all right, now what? I go on vacation and I can't do more than 5 days or I start to lose my mind. But yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, I think someone in this room would agree that I'm the same way. Your mind is so focused on doing your job, your passion, and what you love. 2 or 3 days away from it, I feel guilty when I'm not working. I feel guilty when I'm not, and I'm not a micromanager by any means. I have a great team. We have 600 employees that work for us, and we represent 1.3 million members. But there's always, this feeling of I should be working. I should be doing something. I should be doing something on behalf of the people that actually give me the ability to have a dream job. Do you feel the same way?
There's always something to do. That's
right.
The thing. There's always something that needs to be done. I love my office. I love the team that I work with. I love what I do. It's just, I can't imagine not doing it.
Well, I love the fact that you were very supportive of your workforce during COVID. I mean, that was probably the most trying and uncertain times ever. And I've watched some interviews with you and I've seen the passion that you had for making certain that everybody that helped you build this company, whether they were there 20 years or 20 minutes, you were like, we are not laying anybody off. We're going to make sure that everybody has a job, and that's your commitment, and that was your drive through that. Tell us about what that was like, because everything was shut down. Sporting events were shut down, and there was an uncertainty. And look, I mean, fan base is a success, right? And that's what drives the success of the business.
Yeah, every time when you get into corporate America, every time something bad happens or something scary or however you want to look at it, it's the time to start going, all right, we need to start laying people off because... And I'm the exact opposite. No, that is not the time you start laying people off. If you're ever in an unfortunate position where you have to lay people off because you can't continue to run your business or whatever the deal is, I guess you have to make some hard choices. Unfortunately, I've never been in that position yet, and I didn't. The whole COVID thing never made sense to me. I said, if it's that bad, if it's as bad as they're trying to make it sound, we're all in some trouble anyway. But I'm never going to be the guy that's hiding in my house and letting, my employees lose their jobs and the business go down the tubes and not honor our contracts. And yeah, I'm just not that guy.
It's funny because I deal with CEOs all the time. And I deal with CEOs that don't hide. They're not in the front leading. And what they care about most is the bottom line of a balance sheet. Mm-hmm. They don't care about what happens. They don't care about what sacrifices that their employees have to make. And, that's important for people like you to be out there leading from the front. Everybody always, refers to CEOs as being ruthless, right? I look at someone like you as being relentless in a good way.
Thank you.
Relentless to sacrifice personal time with your family, sacrifice maybe time off, but to build something that keeps people employed, and there's a loyalty that goes along with that. And you don't see that in corporate America much.
I agree. And I'll never pick money over people, ever. So, yeah. Yeah.
I certainly have. And I took this job and I took a pay cut. So, it's not about the money with me. It's about the passion and the people. My organization, I've been proud member for 35 years. Come out of Local 25 in Charlestown. And the loyalty to the organization for 4 generations has given me everything in my entire life, has provided a great living for me and my family, provided great opportunity. And you've built something from the ground up. And I think people don't realize, especially, the younger people that are UFC fans. I'm a huge UFC fan. I was such a fan before it was popular to be a fan. I remember watching the unsanctioned, I had VHF tapes of the unsanctioned fights, and where it was to where it is right now, that had to be a tremendous journey.
Yeah, it's been incredible. And I was very lucky, my partners at the time, the Fertitta brothers, 2 of the greatest human beings on the planet. So I got to do it with them. We had a great time building this business. And it's been good, man.
I mean, you took it from an underground, unsanctioned, kind of like the movie Bloodsport, like the Kumite, right? And now it's a global, probably one of the most watched sporting events in the world. Tell us the journey from the beginning to the end.
Well, the way you just explained it is so true. I mean, I was just in London last weekend. We had a fight on Saturday in London, and Kevin Holland, this kid from Texas, is in there fighting this guy from the other part of the world. I love that shit, that like these people that come from different parts of the world, they train, they get to a point where they are good enough to get into the UFC. They become ranked in the top 10 in the world, and then they fight each other. And you figure, I just told this story a couple weeks ago. I spoke at Michael Dell's house in Austin, Texas. And I was on vacation with my family and we went to Bora Bora. Have you ever been to Bora Bora?
I'm lucky I got out of Boston.
It's in the middle of the ocean. Seriously, in the middle of the ocean, inside a volcano, right? In the water. And
can we pull up Bora Bora?
It is
because
literally in the middle of nowhere.
2 things. People back home don't believe that I'm friends with Dana White, and they won't believe there's such a thing called Bora Bora.
Bora Bora. If you ever get the opportunity to go, it's a really chill place, no partying or any of that stuff. Beautiful. You literally jump out. It's the huts that are in the water. You literally jump out your back door, and it's the best snorkeling you've ever seen in your life. So we go to this part with this local guy. When I say local guy, he's wearing like the wrap around him, and like this guy is a local. This is out in the middle of nowhere. And I guess for 150 years, they've been feeding these sharks right outside. So the sharks are like dogs. They come up to the boats and, you're feeding them, and there's tons of them. My son jumped out and was like riding them, and it's pretty crazy. So this guy starts telling me about these fights that are happening that weekend. And I'm like, what do you mean fights? Like, what kind of fights? He's like, well, all the local islands all fight each other every weekend to see which island's going to win. And I'm like, I keep asking him all these questions. And my wife's like, you better not even fucking think about, you know what I mean? We're on vacation in Bora Bora. And I'm like, I'm absolutely going to this fight tonight. So I have this guy pick me up in his boat that night and take me to these fights. That was our philosophy when we bought the company. We believed that fighting would work everywhere. Like everybody, as human beings, no matter where you come from, fighting's in our DNA. We get it and we like it. And, obviously we were dead on and we were right, but that little trip that I went on just proves everywhere you go, anywhere in the world, fighting is just It's a part of our culture.
So you get involved with you're out here. Fertitta brothers are great friends of yours. What propelled you? How did you convince them to make an investment in something that people weren't buying, people weren't believing in? We all know that boxing is so big at that point in time.
Right.
Pretty big balls to take a chance like that.
Well, Lorenzo and I had talked about always getting involved in fighting, but we always talked about boxing. It was going to be boxing. And then we started taking jiu-jitsu, and we started to meet some of the UFC fighters, and we liked them. They were good guys, they were smart guys, and they weren't what you expected. You know, the UFC had the stigma attached to it.
But most of the Americans that were in the UFC or prior, most of them were college wrestlers, right?
Yep.
That had college degrees. So you're not dealing with, but
Thugs.
Thugs.
Right.
Yeah.
No, you're
Gangsters,
absolutely right. And the truth is that if you were involved in martial arts growing up, your parents had some money. So it wasn't like I came from the mean streets of such and such, and if it wasn't for boxing, I'd be dead or in jail, which was every guy's story in boxing. It was completely different. It was refreshing. And I just, once I started training in it, I got it. And then the Fertitta started training in jiu-jitsu with me, and we fell in love with the sport. And I was representing some of the guys at the time, got into this contract battle with the old owner. He flipped out on me and said, you know what, there is no more money. I don't even know if I can afford to put on the next event. And,
and that's
I hung up the phone with him, and I said.
And that's when the entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I called Lorenzo and I said, I just got off the phone with Bob Meyerowitz, the owner of the UFC, and I think they're in trouble, and I think they're going out of business.
What were the Gracie's involvement in the
So they helped start this thing in the beginning, but by the time this happened, they were already 100% out. Yeah.
Yeah. So you make an offer to them, probably overpaid for it at the time, do you think, or?
No, I think what we paid for it was fair. The problem was the way that Meyerowitz wanted to do the deal is he's like, listen, this is as is right here, no bullshit, no more whatever. You take it or you leave it for $2 million. And once we dove in, and after we bought it, and he had sold away all the rights, all the ancillary stuff, DVDs, which was a big part of the business back then.
And probably
video games,
probably the audience now,
merchandise.
The 25-year-olds have no idea what DVDs are.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. But it was a big deal then. That's when the DVD business was hot.
Right.
And we got a lot of revenue from DVDs once we got the DVD rights back. But yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's these weird situations in time. It was the right place at the right time. Everything lined up, and it was like it was meant to be.
But
like
that was your gut
instinct. To buy this.
That was your gut instinct telling you that, right? You knew
100%.
You knew you believed in it, and when you believe in something, it's usually because your gut's telling you this is the right thing to do. It wasn't easy though. I mean, you're taking over a sport that is not popular. It's not accepted.
It was banned. It was
banned,
illegal in most places.
And it wasn't sanctioned.
And it wasn't allowed on pay-per-view. Think about how crazy that is. Porn was on pay-per-view. UFC wasn't allowed on
We were just talking about the Spice Channel yesterday.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, remember the black boxes you get
100%.
to avoid the cable? Yeah. And we were just talking how you'd get,
or if you had,
when they shot the bullet and it was all discombobulated,
exactly.
And you're turning your head trying to watch it.
So true. If you didn't have the channel, it was pixelated.
Yeah.
You could hear it.
Yeah.
And you could see bits and pieces of it, but yeah.
You thought you hit the big time, but that's amazing.
The Spice Channel.
That's amazing because it's like, so you break into the sport, you are concerned that, it's banned in many states, almost all of the states, right?
Yeah. It wasn't regulated, it wasn't sanctioned in states. They had just done a fight in New Jersey right before we bought it. So New Jersey was looking good. The commissioner over there at the time was a martial arts guy, and he understood it, and
So how did you get into mainstream? How did you get the UFC into mainstream? Did you make deals with pay-per-view companies?
Well, no. So the deal is that we knew we had to get on free TV. It wasn't allowed on pay-per-view, but to make this thing what it is today, we knew we needed to get on free TV. So the question was, how do you do it? So we would always be working on how to do it. But at the time, the pay-per-view companies, which was in-demand pay-per-view,
Sure.
wouldn't take our calls, wouldn't meet with us, wouldn't whatever. So every year they have a convention. And their convention that year was at Century City in LA. So I flew out there. I got a hotel room where they were staying. And in the morning I went down and looked at their meeting board. And the guy's name that ran In Demand at that time was a guy named Marshall Zelaznik. And I waited outside one of the meeting rooms and I said, he came out and I said, Marshall, Dana White, listen, I got an idea, this, that, and everything else. You could tell he was horrified.
Horrified that you found him and were
Yeah,
waiting
yeah,
for him?
oh yeah, 100%. So start talking to Marshall and start working on. Marshall Zelaznik ended up working for us. He ended up leaving In Demand and coming to work for us.
That's great.
And yeah, I mean, the rest is history. We from there, what I was pitching him on was the concept for a reality show called The Ultimate Fighter, and how this show would build stars to turn into pay-per-view stars. And, that was the pitch to him.
All the time developing talent for the UFC to fight, right?
Right.
And
build stars, because not only did we want and need to build new up-and-coming talent and stars, the stars that we already had, the guys who were our stars with, our fan base, we would make them coaches, and then they would fight at the end of the season on pay-per-view.
So prior to doing that, how did you attract talent? I mean, because you must get people that call you every day. I got this great fighter, or I got someone that I think would be great in the UFC.
Yep. All day, every day.
How do you develop talent? How did you develop it back then, and how do you develop it now?
Yeah, so what we would do back then, there were these camps, whether it was Pat Militich's place out in Iowa, AKA up in Northern California, and the list goes on and on. There were camps all over the country and all over the world. And we had guys that were talent scouts that would, back then though, you had to do it with VHS tapes. So they would send in VHS tapes, and our matchmakers would look at the tapes and decide who they liked and who they didn't like and bring them in.
And what's your role in all this while they're trying to develop and recruit talent?
Well, my role then and now is exactly the same. I mean, I'm working on what we're going to be doing 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah, and most people don't understand how hard that you work, or how hard it is to maintain such a product at such a high level.
Well, what's funny is we have this conversation at the UFC all the time. We were literally just talking about it yesterday. Everywhere I go, everybody tells me, I want to work for the UFC. It's my dream, and this and that. And then you come work at the UFC and you realize it's not as glamorous as you thought it was going to be. It's actually a job. It's hard work. I've heard that more from so many people that end up getting the job at the UFC, and then they realize how hard the job really is.
This episode is brought to you by Catches Law Group, proud advocates for injured workers and their families since 1986. If you've been hurt on the job, navigating the workers' comp system can feel like fighting an uphill battle. That's where Catches Law comes in. They've recovered over $3 billion for hardworking people just like you, and they don't back down when your rights are on the line. They know what it means to stand shoulder to shoulder with unions and workers across this country. Because at Catches Law, it's not just about compensation, it's about justice. Learn more at catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com. I know firsthand that Catches Law Group fights and fights and fights for injured workers. They make certain that injured workers are taken care of, and they make certain that they fight hard every single day. Learn more at catcheslaw.com. That's KECHES law.com.
Well, there's a lot of sacrifice and commitment like anything else, but there's a lot of reward to it as well.
Job.
Well, it's a career.
It's work. It's a job. It's work. And we're on the road a lot. And when we're not on the road, I mean, it's a daily grind. It's like Groundhog Day. So Monday is fight week, right? Promoting. Saturday is the fight. Sunday you go home and take off. Monday is fight week.
Yeah, but your phone doesn't
promoting,
stop.
promoting. It's every week. I mean, we do a fight basically every Saturday.
How many people report to work directly for you?
Report directly to me is
that
probably
work for the UFC.
10 people.
Yeah.
10 people out of 550, 600.
And they've got to manage 500 and 600 people, plus the outside contractors that you may have to utilize in different countries or different venues.
100%. But what we have is, you have me and I do my shit that I do every day. We have a chief operating officer, so all the other executives, department heads report to him, and and then it funnels down through the company.
So what do you do on your regular day, Monday morning you get up?
So here's how you don't fuck this thing up, okay? Always looking for young up-and-coming talent, always looking to put on the best fights that we can possibly make, the best television production you can have, and the best in-house live production. As long as I stay focused on those things, you can't mess this up.
So what's your day like, Monday?
Mondays are like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Any day that ends in
I
Y?
come in every morning and I work out and I do my superhuman protocol that I got from Gary Brecka. Do that every day. And then I start my day, and it's meetings. And what happens with me now a lot is my office is like Shark Tank. I have so many people coming in and pitching me different businesses or ideas, or, because we own more. Me and the Fertitta brothers own a company called Thrill One too. Mm-hmm. So I run that, which is Power Slap, SLS Skate League, skateboarding, and Nitro Circus. And we own Ridiculousness too on MTV.
So I'm a huge fan of Power Slap.
Me too.
Now, I know where you're going with this. I don't want to be on Power Slap, all right? But it's a sport that's kind of evolving like the early days of the UFC.
It's a beast,
right? But it's only sanctioned in one state, or is it?
No, we're in California. We're in Nevada. We're in Texas. We're in Florida. We're going to get New Jersey done soon. Basically, everywhere that you would hold an event, with the exception of New York, we can do a fight.
Where do you get these people that want to get slapped in the face?
Yeah.
Because I'm not a big fan of getting slapped in the face.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of getting punched or slapped in the face. But the talent's coming from everywhere, not just the United States either, all over the world. So we have a girl named Erica who is our matchmaker, and people mail in submissions to her every day. And
what are the backgrounds of these people that want to go?
And we go out, look, and listen, if you're an MMA fighter, right, and it doesn't look like you're going to make it to the UFC level, or this is an option. And you make more money slapping than you would fighting in these smaller MMA promotions.
That's amazing. So how long you been promoting this, or you
2 years
developed it?
Yeah.
And it's grown significantly.
It is the most successful thing that I've ever been a part of in such a short amount of time.
So if we ever wanted to set up like a venue, like a good venue, could we do like a political slap?
That would be big. Yeah, no, that would be huge.
I would actually participate in that.
Well, lots of people anybody can do this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's what makes it so appealing. Shit, I left my phone out there. I would like to read. Would you tell my guy to bring my phone in here? I got to read this to you. My girl texted me this yesterday. This is how crazy this thing is.
So what gave you the idea for Power Slap?
So I was on social media, right? And I saw it on social media in like 17, 18. And what I noticed was, like you were saying earlier, I do everything by the gut. And I was like, I noticed that I wanted to see who would win. I would stay on and watch until I saw who won. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, I want to do this. So who do I call? The Fertittas. I said, hey guys, I'm into this but I'm into this slapping thing.
So wait, was it just something that was online?
Yeah.
People would just...
Yeah, it was coming out of Russia and Poland. And I said, I think I want to do this. And they're like, how much money do you need? I said, we'll all put in $1 million each, and let's do it. They said, we're in. So listen to this. So my girl hits me with this yesterday. Power Slap just hit 600 million views on Instagram in March alone. Our most views on Instagram in a single month. Across platforms, we have over 1 billion views in March alone. Our second time hitting 1 billion plus views in a month this year. We're on pace to 2x our social media numbers compared to last year. And last year, we smoked everybody on social media.
That's unbelievable.
It's insane. This thing is so big.
What does your wife think about it when I'm hey, I'm going to invest $1 million with my two best friends, and it's going to be called Power Slap? Does she look at you and go, "What is wrong with you?"
Well, she always looks at me and says, "What's wrong with you?" I mean, I can
relate right over there, you know.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's what I do. That's what I do. But yeah, this thing's a beast.
So, what do you think it'll be bigger than UFC?
Yeah, I mean, this thing in 2 years. What month? In March right now, right? So it's 2 years and 3 months old. This thing has more sponsors and bringing in more revenue than UFC did in 10 years.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And now
it's worth $1 billion in 2 years.
Now you're going to get back into boxing.
Yeah. Now I'm getting into boxing.
So boxing, when we were growing up in the 80s, 90s, you had some big names. Boxing was the sport to watch. Like I think you referenced, which I remember is always staying in watching fights, whether it was Mike Tyson with Evander Holyfield or Roy Jones Jr. or even before that, Larry Holmes, Jerry Cooney, that whole crew.
Yep.
And boxing was probably one of the most watched sports at the time. And when you decided to jump into, you were into the boxing scene a little bit early on, right? As far as wanting to be a promoter. What turned you off from boxing?
Well, what's funny is when we first started this business, the fan base always used to look at other MMA promoters as our competition, which I never did. I always looked at boxing as our
was
biggest.
it Bellator, I think, was one of them?
Yeah, Bellator, Pride. Pride was probably our biggest rival at the time, which we ended up buying them. But I always looked at boxing. Boxing was who I always wanted to beat. Because everywhere I went, everybody used to say to me, well, this will never be as big as boxing. This will never, boxing. And I love boxing. I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you right now if it wasn't for boxing. But that was always, I always wanted to beat boxing. That was always my thing.
I mean, especially our age group. I mean, you look at a very good friend of mine, Mickey Ward, right? Probably one of the best human beings I've ever met in my life. Very good friend. And I just look at how he was taken advantage through his whole career, with bad promoters, bad deals. Do you want to change the opinion of boxing and the direction? I mean, you see some of these fighters today. Like I was in Hunts Point, New York, about 4 or 5, maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. And someone points over, they had these amateur boxing matches right in the middle of Hunts Point Produce Market. I mean, a rough place in the Bronx. It was on a Saturday. And they point to this guy, and he goes, you know who that guy is? And the guy was walking around. He was massive. And I said, it's got to be a former NFL player. He's like, he's homeless. I'm like, who is it? It was Iran Barkley. And I'm like, how does a guy that fought at such a high level, how do they end up like this? And person said, look, bad promoters, bad managers, and it's a dirty
well, here's
spot.
the other thing. These guys made money. You could tell these kind of sad stories in any sport.
Right.
The NFL, the NBA, the list goes on and on. They're all grown men. You can't tell them how to spend their money and what to do with their money. And, problem is when you're a professional athlete, whether you're a basketball player, football player, whatever, and you're making millions of dollars, as you grow up and you grow up poor, right? I just heard Ben Affleck telling this story yesterday.
I don't think he grew up poor.
No, but I'm saying I heard Ben Affleck telling a story yesterday about when they made their first $1 million, when, it was $1 million, then they had to split it. They had to pay taxes. They had to pay these guys, those guys. And by the time they were done, they bought a car, they bought a house, and there's nothing left.
Right.
But as you grow up, you think $1 million is so much. If I could make $1 million, that'd be it. I'd be set for the rest of my life, and it's just not true.
Oh, definitely not.
It's just not true. And when you get into that position and you're young and you're healthy and you're fucking full of testosterone and whatever, you think it's never going to end. And when it does, it is a hard, cold.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. People don't have plan B. Most people don't have plan B. They think to your point, they think that, hey, this is going to last forever. I've got all these great people that love me and support me. And when the money's gone and the fame is gone, so aren't those people.
Yep.
And, it's just sad that it's that way. And, it's funny you bring up Hollywood, right? Ben Affleck, Casey Affleck. we deal with Hollywood a lot. We represent motion picture industry, and we've had a strike with the Screen Actors Guild. And you talk to a lot of these actors, like Jonathan Tucker will tell me, look, yeah, I'll get on a sitcom, I'll get on a series, and you might make $25,000-$30,000 for a 15-week series. And by the time you're done, you pay 25% to the manager, you pay 20% to this one, taxes. You made a modest living.
Same thing in sports.
Right, 100%.
In sports, it's the same thing.
100%,
You're like, oh my God, this guy just did a $30 million deal. It's not $30 million.
So what direction do you want to take boxing in?
Well, I mean, everybody keeps asking me, what's the format? The format is UFC. We're going to do the same thing, but I'm not trying to come out and do all these big fights with all these big guys. I want to start from, I don't know if you remember USA's Tuesday Night Fights.
Yes.
It was on every Tuesday. I never missed an episode. And what that show did was built all the big pay-per-view stars of the 90s and early 2000s. And that's what I want to do. I want to break this thing down, rebuild it from the bottom up, find young up-and-coming talent, have all these good guys fight each other. Same thing. When we bought the UFC, we bought an old wooden octagon and those 3 letters, the UFC, and we had like 15 contracts, 12, 13, 14, 15 contracts. And over the last 25 years, we built it to what it is today. I want to do the same thing with boxing. Very modest and build it from the ground up.
So boxing, you talk about, a lot of the damage, from the head trauma, CTE, and all that stuff. And, UFC has always been touted as, mixed martial arts always been touted as it's a lot safer than boxing. And some people, I've read some articles where they say, well, it hasn't been as mainstream as it's only 25, 30 years old. Do you see long-term effects of CTE or any of these injuries?
I mean, listen, there's no, getting punched in the head is not good for you.
Right.
At any level, no matter what you do.
I try and avoid it at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah. And people know that going in.
Yep.
But we're all grown men and women, and we make our own decisions in life, whether you want to play football, any type of fighting, whatever you do, slapping, punching, whatever it is not good for you long term.
No, definitely not. And you get back to power slap. I'm just thinking about like potential contestants. If we rolled this back like 50 years, my mother would have been a champion.
Yeah,
a champion.
It's true. There's been a lot of mothers that would have been great.
So let's talk about, you are very proud American, like I am, and like most people should be.
Yep.
And you have a great friendship with our president currently right now, Trump.
Yep.
And you spoke at the RNC. Talk about how you met him and how your friendship developed and where you stand today.
Yeah, it's actually a great question, and on a much larger scale. It's funny because when we started talking here today, I was telling you about how fighting works everywhere, and human beings, it's in our DNA, we get it and we like it. All these relationships that I have globally with, I was just in London last weekend, and I went over to basically their White House and sat down, with basically the president of England. I'm very close to the royal family in Abu Dhabi. I was there before I went to London, meeting with them. And President Trump, I met him early on when he had the Taj, and we did our first fights at the Trump Taj Mahal. And he got it and liked it back then. He was a fan immediately. And he showed up for the first fight of the night and stayed until the main event. Both times we were at the Taj, welcomed us in. And my experience with President Trump has always been, from the first day I ever met him to today, he's been a stand-up, good guy. He's been a good friend to me. And, we've built this relationship literally over the last 25 years.
And you're not a political person. I mean,
all.
you don't get into the Democrats or Republicans or independents. You're strictly all about loyalty.
Everybody thinks because we're friends and I've spoke and I've campaigned and I've done what I've done for him, that I'm some far right guy. I would actually consider myself, 10 or 15 years ago, liberal. But the liberal side has gone off the deep end So I consider myself right in the middle.
Yeah, you know,
maybe a little right now.
Yeah, so it's funny. I represent 1.3 million working people, and like yourself, I was asked to speak at the Republican National Convention, and I gave a speech based upon how important, how valuable American workers are, and what the trials and tribulations and struggles have been, and what both parties need to embrace and get back to basics. And I was criticized beyond belief. How could the union president of the Teamsters Union speak at a Republican National Convention? That's an endorsement for Trump. How could he betray working people? And the criticism, the scrutiny. And I wasn't there endorsing any candidate. I was there talking about how important, how valuable, especially coming out of COVID, essential workers were, and how that there is such a discrepancy between CEOs that care more about the bottom line of a balance sheet than they actually do their people. And it's just amazing how people just formulate opinions like, you know, Dana White's a far-right Republican, or Dana White's a Republican because he's friends with Trump. I got friends that are Democrats, I got friends that are independents, and I've got friends that are Republicans.
But they're not opinions, they're narratives.
Right.
What people build now are narratives, and to try to get people to believe what they want them to believe. Say what you want about Trump. Trump is very pro-America. And for the union, I mean, the stuff that he's doing right now couldn't be better.
Well, he's going
to
get criticized for some of the decisions he made. And look, we all get criticized. I'm sure decisions you make, you get criticized. I get criticized. You know, there's people getting laid off because, you know, his whole platform was smaller government. And it's tough. And they got unions that are going to fight for him. You know, recently there's a president of the Auto Workers Union who, you know, went out there pretty aggressively calling Trump a scab at the DNC. Well, now he flips the script and says, you know, he's bringing all this auto manufacturing back. Members are going to be working, stuff that's been said all along. And people get amnesia when they take a position. And I'm like, look, if I'm with you to the fucking end. I'm going down with the ship. And it's just funny, you know, you talk about the politics in this country, and I love this country. I think it's the greatest place in the world. I love when people say, I'm leaving this country. It's a disgrace. Have at it. See you later. Go. Good luck. You know, and it's like the Democratic Party right now, they're fighting everything that anybody that doesn't have their same narrative. And look, I was brought up as a Democrat. It's just, there's nothing wrong with having a relationship with someone, having difference of opinions, and it shouldn't get personal. It should never draw a line in the sand.
It doesn't matter who the president of the United States is. Everybody's never going to agree with every decision they make. And obviously, when things are broken, they're going to get worse before they get better as you start to fix them.
100%.
And that's what's going on right now. Here's what I do know. I know Donald Trump. I know he loves this country. I know he loves all Americans, and he is going to do everything in his power to try to do right by everybody in this country, which is impossible to do, but he's going to try to do it.
Yeah, the tough part in anything is, leading any organization, as you know, is you've got to make decisions. And I make decisions every day, just like you do. And I make decisions, and, you know, I stand by them. I defend them. But if they don't work, I fucking own them. And it's a sad day in this country where people can't just take a step back, take a deep breath and say, I don't like what this person's doing. I don't like what that person's doing. But let's give it a little time, and let's add value to a conversation instead of attacking people personally. Because look, America is the greatest nation in the entire world. There's no doubt about it.
I agree. Believe me, take it from a guy who travels to every country weekly. I'm in a different country every week. And a lot of these places that I grew up going, oh, that'd be a cool place to live. That'd be a cool place to live. COVID showed us exactly where wouldn't be and where would be.
Right. No, it's crazy. Conor McGregor.
Yep.
All right. So I was just in Belfast last week, and he's running for president of Ireland.
Same as you and everybody else, I saw it announced. You know, we'll see.
How is he?
He's a maniac. But Conor is Conor's not a dumb guy. He's smart. If you look at what he's done and what he's built in a short amount of time, not just in the UFC, but other businesses that he built outside the UFC. He's a smart guy.
Will he fight again in the UFC?
We'll see. Hope so.
So I was over there and I was doing a meeting with some politicians over there and trying to work on some trade stuff.
I'm assuming if he becomes the president of Ireland, he will not fight in the UFC again. But go ahead. Sorry.
So it was just funny, right? So it's pretty woke over in Ireland.
Yeah, that's what the word is.
So I was in Belfast, and my family's from Donegal, so I got to do a tour of my great-grandmother's farm and everything else. So I was talking to, you just talk to people, and, you're like, hey, how's Conor McGregor? Now in Northern Ireland, the guy goes, fuck him, he's a fucking dub. And I go, what the fuck is a dub? He's from Dublin. And that was it. I'm like, all right. But then there's other people that love him, so it should be interesting.
It is going to be interesting. Yeah, him running for president, and a lot of the younger generation over there will like him a lot more than the older generation. So
yeah, I tell you, it was pretty fascinating over there because we grew up where I grew up in Boston. The support of Sinn Féin, especially in the Irish neighborhood, is very important. It was a religious battle. And it's amazing how a guy like Jerry Adams and Sinn Féin has shaped a country where brought all kinds of these political parties that never liked each other, that tried to kill each other and did kill each other, ended up in prisons and everything else. They're about 5 to 10 years away from uniting Ireland, which is some significant improvement. But, I just see him going over there and, just running amok. It'd be funny. I mean, he doesn't do anything subtle.
It's interesting. It is interesting.
So did he ask you for your blessing for that?
And for people, no, listen, he's his own man. He does what he wants to do. All of our fighters, man, I don't tell any of our guys what to do, what to say. They're independent contractors with me, and when they want to fight, they fight. And
but I don't think we should tell anybody what they should do.
Ever.
I mean,
don't.
We're grown-ass men and women.
COVID.
And you know what? You can advise and say, look, this is where I stand. But you know what? It's a free country. Everybody has their opinions. Make a decision on what you think is best.
Same thing with my employees through COVID. If you wanted the shot, we had it available for you. If you didn't want to take the shot, you didn't have to take it. And it didn't affect whether you could work or not. That was up to you. It was grown men and women. If you wanted to take the shot, you could.
Some of the funny shit that I'd see is, people driving their car alone with a mask.
Yeah.
My 15-year-old nephew, who stutters a little bit, he's a funny bastard. He says to me one day, Uncle Sean, I just seen this guy driving in a car with a mask on with no one in the car. He goes, that's like jerking off with a condom. I'm like, where do you get this shit,
It's insane. It was insane.
Oh,
you see people
God.
walking outside by themselves with a mask on. Yeah, the whole COVID thing was goofy to me and never made sense. So
no, it's crazy.
I just figured out how to work around it the whole time. But I love how it's a brilliant, when you look back on it, almost like a case study on how to control people. And so if you had the freedom to say, I don't want to take the shot. So what they would say, it's my body. I'll do what I want to do. I'm a grown ass man, woman. I don't want to take it. So what they would say is, you're going to kill other people. If you don't take the shot, you're going to hurt other people and kill other people. Fascinating way to spin.
Trying to manipulate you into the shot.
It's fascinating when you look back. And all the media was all aligned with what they were saying. And then they started trying to do the whole, calling people out. Well, these people shouldn't be allowed in society. And if they do get sick, they shouldn't be allowed to come to the hospital. And it was pretty fucking evil.
I told someone recently, I said, I grew up, the end of my street was the MBTA, which you're familiar with.
Yep.
The other end of my street was...
And the MBTA is the subway. Right. Yeah.
The other end of my street was the Mystic River, which is probably at that time the most polluted body of water in the United States. And, we didn't have peanut allergies. We didn't have people getting diagnosed left and right with autism and all these other crazy autoimmune diseases. And it's like, and then COVID hits. And it's like, no. This doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. We were better when we weren't as clean as we are right now. And who's making all this money? Where is this coming? Where is this being driven from? So there was always that conspiracy theory that, hey, COVID is, the pharmaceuticals are going to make a ton of money. They're going to create these drugs and it's a big money grab. So you have that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. No, it was it was a very goofy time. And when you look back on it now and you see stuff on TV, because we were watching TV the other day and there was some content where the kids were playing basketball and they were all wearing masks during a basketball game.
Insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I have two boys, and they were just one just graduated high school, the other was playing hockey in high school, and it was like they wanted them to wear masks while they had a hockey helmet and a mask on. I'm like, this is crazy. These kids are gonna die, not from COVID.
Yeah,
they can't breathe.
Right.
You know, it was insane. But, you know, that's the other thing too. I mean, you look at that generation, and you have children, I think probably the same age as mine my oldest is 24, my youngest is 21. And they really got screwed in this whole thing.
100%.
You know, they couldn't go to school.
Yep.
They couldn't interact with their friends.
Couldn't graduate.
No, couldn't graduate. Couldn't go to their prom.
How about family members that died alone in a hospital and you couldn't go see them?
Yeah, crazy. I mean, I had a woman that worked for me, and her mother was in a home, and they were like, you can talk to her through the window. Really? I'm going to talk to the lady that brought me up my entire life through a fucking window? You're crazy. It was just a crazy time. Thankfully, we never have to go back there. So what is your family life like?
It's good. I mean, my daughter graduates high school this year, and we literally just flew to Miami last week. She got into the University of Miami.
Oh, great school.
Yep. It's what she wanted. She worked hard for it. She got it. So we're happy for her. And then my other boys are 22 and 23. And my oldest moved to Boston. He loves it there.
We're going to see him at the finish line with Jack Flaherty and Peter Welch's kid.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. He was getting ready to prepare to run the Boston Marathon, and he hurt his knee. So he's out of that.
So does he want to come to the finish line with us?
Yeah.
And celebrate while the other two cross the line?
Well, that's the thing. I was going to be there now, and that was going to, I think the next day is Easter, right? And so we were planning on doing Easter in Boston, but not now since he hurt his knee. He's coming here. So I won't be there, but thank you for the invite. And yeah, he loves Boston. I'm happy that he gets to experience it and that he loves the city as much as, think about this. When we grew up in Vegas here, him and his brother and sister, there were no teams. So they were fans of everything Boston.
Oh, I know. My kids are spoiled. I say to them all the time, I'm like, you have it made. You watched all our sports teams win multiple world championships, 100%. Right? When we were growing up, we had the Celtics. That was it. The Bruins were awful. The Red Sox were awful. The shot they got, the ball between Buckner's legs, right? And then, the Patriots were terrible. I remember Matt Millen smashing Pat Sullivan. Do you remember that?
No.
It was after a game. They played the Raiders. The Sullivans that owned the Patriots. This was like 85. Howie Long's walking off the field. Now, Howie Long's from Charlestown. And Pat Sullivan, who was like born on third base and thinks he actually hit a triple to get there, says something wise to Howie Long. It was a big media story. Howie Long turned around and went after him, and Matt Millen jumped in and smashed Pat Sullivan in the face. I got a picture of it at my house. It's amazing. And this is what then you see the Crafts now building a dynasty. Yep. The players all respect them. I mean, it was just great times for our kids growing up with those sports teams.
So true. I tell them the same thing. All you guys know is winning.
So what do they think of their world famous dad?
But it's one of the cool things about this era that the Patriots and like you said, all these Boston teams had. I had incredible experiences with my kids because of that. We went to games. I'm friends with Brady and a lot of the Celtics, and it's been an incredible experience for me and my family.
Yeah, and most people know that you're originally from Massachusetts.
Right.
Right, and then you left and then came back.
So my mom, single mom, 2 kids and a dog. She was a nurse. Vegas was paying nurses more than anywhere else in the country. So we packed up the car, drove to Vegas from Boston.
That had to be culture shock, though.
Oh, yeah. No, it was. But a good one. I was very lucky that I got to grow up on both coasts, the East Coast and the West Coast. I learned a lot from both. And I had a lot of family up in Maine, so I spent a lot of time in Maine, too, and I love it up there. So I've been very lucky to have the experience that I've had growing up.
And then you came back. You worked in the Boston Harbor Hotel.
Right.
You worked for the Evangelistas.
That's right. You know the Evangelistas.
So I know it's a funny story. I bought a house in Wakefield like 10, 12 years ago, and I met the youngest one, I think Greg. He was a young kid at the time, but hard-working people. Yeah. Just good people, very good people.
Yeah, they are very good people. And that was a great experience for me too, working at EJ Paving in Wakefield. It was, those guys are animals, man.
Yeah. They work hard.
Hardcore Italian, crazy maniacs. And it was a great experience for me growing up.
And then you were at Boston Harbor Hotel and you were trying to do the fight thing in Boston. And there's a story about that. I worked at EJ. First job I got there was at the Black Rose. I bounced at the Black Rose. Then I ended up getting the EJ Paving job. Notorious Charlestown hangout, by the way.
Huh?
The Black Rose was a notorious Charlestown hangout.
The fights every single weekend there.
There would have been some good contenders.
You got that right. Then I went to the Boston Harbor Hotel. Then I went looking for Peter Welsh and wanted to get into the fight business.
He's the best, isn't he?
The best.
Peter's one of the best guys around.
The best.
Yeah, he's good.
You want another guy, loyal, hardcore, Southie dude.
Absolutely, 100%. So there's a story about you getting into the boxing world in Boston and you leaving.
Yep.
Do you mind touching upon that?
Yeah, so me and Peter were doing the boxing stuff, and I was actually teaching at the Boston Athletic Club. And one day I'm in there teaching, and these two guys walk into my class, and they're like, "We need to talk to you." I'm like, "I'm teaching class." I'm like, "Yeah, we need to talk to you."
And you were about 22, 23
and I'm like, "Who the
fuck
are these? Are these guys like the Boston Athletic Club guys?" I didn't know who they were. So we walk outside the class, and he says to me, "You know who I am?" And I said, "No." And they start talking about to me, and then let me know who they were. It was Kevin Weeks.
Looking to infringe on your hard work.
Yeah, it was just that's the way it was there then.
So I grew up, obviously in that whole era. My dad was a Charlestown person. My mother grew up in the projects in Charlestown. I went to high school in Medford, but you always knew what was going on and who was who. And ironically, when you hear these stories now, and majority of them were true. I am going to be having Brian Kelly. I don't know if you ever heard of Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly was a former U.S. attorney who prosecuted the whole Whitey Bulger case. We're going to be doing a podcast. He's going to lay out the whole case from start to finish. So it should be interesting.
It's fascinating. No, the whole thing is, when you lived there at that time, and like you said, you heard the stories, you didn't realize how dangerous that place was at that time. But it was very dangerous. It's fascinating.
But I'll tell you, it was a great place to grow up.
I agree. I wouldn't change one thing. I had always planned to come back to Vegas. They just got me back to Vegas sooner.
They just skyrocketed there faster.
Yeah.
It's funny. The best thing about Boston, and I tell this all the time to people, because we have this air about us that we're arrogant, but we're direct, right? We are definitely direct. But the one thing about where we grew up, where you worked, and where you hung around, and who you hung around with, there's unconditional loyalty, no matter what.
And Boston people are good people.
Good best
people, man. It just some of my lifelong friends are people from Boston, and some of my greatest memories and some of the best times I've ever had were with Boston people in Boston.
Well, we consider you from Boston, so I know you're busy. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Huge fan, huge supporter, and can't wait to see what's next.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother.